me are all about access. And what I don't want to be is a gatekeeper. I want to be somebody who opens the gate and provides access, because having access to originals for me is transformative. So let me just read a little bit of what I wrote here. It says, I teach using primary sources, that real authentic stuff, the old photographs, letters, and diaries, tools, and artifacts. And they shine a light on the past and convey unique perspectives on history. And when we have access to them, we feel special and find a new way to learn. If you can, for just a minute, imagine or think back when one of your first museum experiences, and what got you excited about being in museums, or what objects, or what your experience was like in a museum. And likely you were engaging and learning about some kind of object, right? I remember going to New York. I grew up on the East Coast, and for a long time I was a calligrapher, and I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they had the Book of Kells on display. And I think I was almost crying because I got to see that. And then as a young kid, I grew up near Corning, New York. And I remember going to the Corning Glass Museum and seeing that huge lens, that telescopic lens, and that dark blue kind of background, and stepping into that space and just feeling, wow, that is just so cool. And I guess that stayed with me, because then I ultimately moved into the museum field. The other thing was I started off in children's museums. And so that has really informed, I think, the idea of access being so important, being able to be hands-on and touch things, and then also to spend as little or long as you want with any given experience or object. So primary sources inspired me to create a portable primary source kit that could be conveyed to Valdez classrooms by me, or could be left and the teacher could use it with their students. So what's in the kit? And we're going to see, I'm going to open the kit up and you can see all the contents of it. What's in our prototypical kit right now are binders, thumb drives that identify what a primary source is and give you some examples in Valdez Museum's archives, and also in repositories throughout the state and the nation. It also has worksheets that you can use to analyze originals, such as a map, a photograph, or a sound recording. Simple tools used to complete activities. I don't know about you, but whenever I go in the classroom, there's not a child who comes with a pencil, right? Where's the pencils? So it has pencils and rulers, and everybody needs a magnifier, okay? Right now, I just have a few in the case, but I've been informed that I'll need a magnifier for each child in that class, whether or not they're looking at their navel or their, their colleagues' eyelashes or the actual object. I'll need a magnifier. We also have in the primary source kit, Tabitha Gregory's new book. Now, the book would be a secondary source of Valdez Rises, but what it is filled with citations for primary sources. So it's a great teaching guide. In this kit, I have a new documentary that I created on Valdez prospector and entrepreneur Lillian Moore, and it's available on a thumb drive or also on YouTube. And then copies of all the primary sources that went into its making, because our kit, part of our kit's development is linked to a class that I took with Marie Achema, who is here as a presenter today. And in it, teachers gathered and had to create a documentary that was no longer than 10 minutes long, and that used primary sources to illustrate the story. And it was also linked with that year's National History Day. And that National History Day theme was one of communication. So I wanted students who are so tech savvy, right? And they're making films and doing things all the time, to see that film, then to see the images that went into it. So I've got examples of those photographs, copies of those, and maybe spur them to either become part of National History Day or go out and make a movie, just do something, get excited about learning. let's see what else I have here. So I have an iPad that travels with my primary source kit. When I travel with it, because I'm always using that to source photographs or YouTube videos or whatever I need, that's going to provide a link to deeper access and understanding. With the iPad, I photograph museum events, and I don't know about you, I'm sure I know about you. You use everything, not for just one purpose, right? Everything. It's like all of us, right? So an iPad is used in the kit. It's used to teach how to use an iPad to make an iMovie. It's used to film and photograph things at the museum. It's used for scavenger hunts, all kinds of things. I also have a voice enhancer in here. I've learned to use these when I give guided tours during the summer to cruise ship passengers or to overland groups so that they can hear me. Let's see, the kit also contains originals. They're not formally a part of the museum's collection. The traveling kits, contents, those would be part of an education collection. When I take things to classrooms or have students come to the museum, they are in close proximity to and handling original materials from the museum's collection. With the exception, I don't know if you saw the shoe and the woman's high-topped lace-up boot, that was a boot from the educational collection. But the kids were just fascinated by things like clothing and shoes. And they get their bogs boots out there or their big old feet next to one of those shoes and try to imagine what it must have been like, how anyone could have feet that small and that narrow. And we talk a little bit about, the challenges of, going out in Valdez and having to lace your shoe up on and off. I don't know about you, but I love something I can pull on and scoot. So one of the things we do, I guess I would say too, is you can take those primary source objects and relate them to what kids know about material culture and their own everyday life. So I'm going to shift gears and going to see if I've got the right one. I'm going to show you a short 10-minute film on Lillian Moore. Oh, you stop that. Okay.
Amy for 41 days.
No,
and we're still waiting on another.
No,
We had quite an excitement.
we have quite an excitement to get this going. Okay, so Lillian Moore is a fascinating person who is a prospector who's going to come to Valdez in 1898. She will play a key role in the development of the original town site. She has a history that's written about that is called into question. I love Lillian Moore. She's got spunk and chutzpah, and she will have the fastest time ascending and descending the Valdez Glacier of any woman on the trek, and she'll show up a number of her male counterparts who are prospectors going up and over the Valdez Glacier to the gold fields where they're going to find gold the size of birds' eggs, just lining the riverbanks along Copper Center, right? You've heard that story before. Okay. Well, she is a smart woman, ends up finding out that she's not going to strike it rich, but comes back to Valdez and says the best way for me to earn a living is to mine the miners. She'll marry a Mr. Wood. They'll have a drayage company. She'll run a roadhouse at some point. She will have a long history of loving animals and work with a Captain Abercrombie. And what she'll also do is she'll write a letter home to her sister Lou and telling her sister about her exploits up and over the Valdez Glacier. The theme, this film was created as part of that class that tied with National History Day. Am I talking too fast or, okay, there is no test. on my part or your part for this, okay? So what you remember is what you remember. So National History Day that year had that theme of communication. And so I thought, I knew that Valdez was a transportation hub, was the gateway to the interior, and was the hub where the mail was conveyed to the interior early on in Alaska's history. So I thought, maybe I could do something with the mail. And then I remembered Lillian Moore's letter, which is just a fabulous read. And I thought maybe I can wed the two of these together in that documentary film. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. Let's see if I can get back to the beginning of this film. Okay.
Lillian Moore's letter home from Alaska. Dear Lou, my trip into the interior was taken with Captain Abercrombie. We started August 5th with 24 wild horses, each carrying from 200 to 400 pounds. It had been raining for 41 days and was still raining when we started. About 5 miles from Valdez to the foot of the glacier was over rocks and creeks. First one horse would get away and then another. We had quite an excitement as they did not take kindly to the pack. Lillian's first-person account of ascending the Valdez Glacier en route to Copper River country, where gold is said to abound, is told by a prospector, horsewoman, and adventurer living and working in Valdez, Alaska in 1898. Written letters like those penned by Moore are conveyed via the mail, then kept. They form part of the historical record and communicate the history of the Alaska Territory to the outside world. They help the reader understand how the frontier town of Valdez was established and the importance of the mail in making it a transportation hub and gateway to the interior early in its history. Lillian writes, at the time the fog was so thick we could not see 10 feet ahead. We had 2 guides with us who kept getting lost. We had to travel 10 miles to make 2, back and forth. It is about 30 miles from timber to timber on an airline. There is an upgrade of 3,400 feet to the top of the Valdez Glacier. Well, we traveled all day, making rests now. You know, after you get up on the glacier, you can see nothing but great fields of ice for miles and miles, and cold. Fellow 1898 prospector Basil Austin wrote daily in his diary of his trek up the Valdez Glacier. His 2 journals form another part of the written historical record. He notes on the inside cover of his logbook that the Atna chief Nikolai, a Copper River native, provided information in July of '98 that inspired the creation of hand-drawn maps that likely aided Austin and his colleagues as they navigated the unfamiliar Alaskan terrain. Explorers and prospectors, those coming to develop and colonize the region and extract its natural resources, acknowledge the help provided by the Atna people. Roadside signs present today along the Richardson Highway extol the role of Alaska natives during the gold rush. Prospector Joseph Bork, who hailed from Brooklyn, New York, kept a diary too, and photographed the arduous journey to the interior. He is shown by the fireside laughing, then reading a letter received in the mail. Ships arriving from Seattle and dropping anchor in the deep Valdez harbor brought the mail with them and news from the outside in 1898. A mail tent can be seen pitched in high snows along the Valdez Trail. Lillian Moore's letter was conveyed home to Hudson, Massachusetts, and her sister Lucy Gleason Moore via the mail, then transcribed by her cousin George Knight, who in turn sent a copy to his father, who was prospecting near Rampart City in Alaska. In her letter home, Lillian recounts descending the Valdez Glacier, fording the Clutina River. The horses forded the river 3 times, but some of the men took the mountain trail, and such a trail. We had to scale around the loose rocks over the river. If you missed your footing into the river, you would go. One man lost his balance, fell in the current, and was carried about 300 feet before he could catch himself. I sat down and waited until he came up. I thought he was drowned, but I did laugh when he reappeared. Finally, he shook himself like a rat and went in again after his hat. I went to 12 Mile Camp and found some friends who came up in the boat with me. They were going to take a load down to the sawmill that day, so said if I wished to ride, I could. That saved me a long 12-mile walk. But what a boat ride. The current runs about 50 miles an hour. The river is narrow and crooked, full of sandbars and snags, and only 2 or 3 feet deep. It is the same river where so many lose their goods and are drowned. There's only one chance in 100 of your getting down without getting wet or being stuck on a sandbar. It is full of little whirlpools and rapids, and when you strike one of those, the boat whirls around like a top. I lay flat on my back on top of the goods and held on to the sides. We got along all right until we struck a tree in the middle of the channel, which hit her broadside. She tipped a little, and the water ran over me about 2 feet. All you could see of me was my feet sticking out. It lasted only a second when she righted and went on as if nothing had happened. I was wet through and was cold and thought it would take my breath away. For a wonder, the sun was shining and was warm, so when we reached the sawmill, I was pretty well dried out. Others were learning about Lillian Moore's adventure in Alaska. In the May 1906 issue of the Western Home Journal, writer Sylvester Grogg describes Miss Moore as tall, graceful, and willowy. He says that she started out from New York City with a band of 20 other women in 1898 to seek their fortunes in the Klondikes. The ranks were soon broken. Members dropped out until Miss Moore was the only one of the party that landed in the deep snow banks where is now located the prosperous little city of Valdez. An anonymous note references a newspaper article about Lillian Moore and says that she's connected with the government supply company, has made several perilous trips into the interior, and that she's learned the Indian language and has a position as court interpreter. Photographers from the period captured life in Valdez and Lillian Moore's rise and role in her community in the early part of the century. They picture the animal lover with her horses, dogs, and orphaned pet bears. Now an established businesswoman, Moore stands in front of the Copper River Drain Company, owned and operated by her and her husband, Edwin Wood. The town of Valdez, with Lillian Moore's aid and entrepreneurial spirit, would continue to grow and expand to a few thousand members. People and goods were transported from Valdez to Fairbanks along the Valdez-Fairbanks Trail in sledges owned by the Ed S. Orr Company stage. They carried letters too, not unlike Lillian Moore's, to family, friends, and businesses operating in interior Alaska. Newspapers conveyed the news of Moore's untimely death in 1916, noting that the adventurer died suddenly after suffering an apoplectic stroke at her home on McKinley Street. Her story doesn't end here, however, but concludes with her arrival back in Valdez after surmounting the Valdez Glacier in the fastest time of any woman on record. From her letter, we had 5 miles more to walk. When we started, I took the lead, found a good trail, and started at a fast pace. That coffee braced me up, and I felt good. The boys were saying that we could all go in together, only that they thought they would have to wait for me. I finished first, and the best of it was when I came in camp, I got 3 cheers and lots of handshakes. I broke the record, and the first woman to make the trip in 3 days and 3 hours. Arriving in camp, I had a hot drink, went home and changed my clothes for dry ones. Got my mail. I found about 20 letters waiting for me, read them all, went gadding, then laid down but could not sleep. Got up and went to the hotel for my dinner and to a concert in the evening. Aside from a little stiffness, I felt fine, not a bit tired, and up the next morning as if nothing had happened.
So this film was all when I decided the film to make, excuse me, I
Sharing is partly a phenomenon of
really, I don't know who that is, but anyway, another story. I wanted to tell a story that had local roots to it, because what I was hoping to do was to be a catalyst for kids in my community or people in my community to get excited about history, and perhaps to delve more into doing research into the museum's collection and really just seeing what wonderful stories come out of primary sources. Before I came to Alaska, I lived in Indianapolis, and I directed exhibitions at the History Center there for almost 14 years. When I first arrived, one of my things was they wanted me to go into the library and to select some items from the Historical Society's collection. And I think it was for the purpose of they have to review access and security and all those things. I'm not sure exactly what that's called, but I tapped into and read some letters, and I think I was really hooked because, first of all, I thought they were probably letters that someone hadn't necessarily intended for the public to read. And I just thought I was getting a glimpse into someone's life and someone's story, that an intimate glimpse into that. And I found that fascinating. Maybe I'm just snoopy, or I'm curious, or whatever. But Lillian Moore's letter was like that too. And her story was like that. She was a real person. And I thought maybe I can get people in our community excited about her story and excited about any other stories that might surface as a result of discovering primary sources. Let's see, I'm going to just show you just a bit more about what's in my primary source kit. And shift here. That's the first iPad I ever had, and it has so darn many photographs on it. It is usually, I don't know what it's got, 10,000 or some phenomenal number. Are we doing okay thus far? Yeah, does anybody need to stretch? I haven't seen any signs that I'm not standing up quite straight, so I'm hoping for the best here.
I'm sorry, I just got so into her story. So sorry. I mean, it was just, I was like, oh my gosh, like I felt transported back to there.
When I've read that letter before, and just last week, 7th graders have resumed kayaking from here to the original town site. It's about, well, it's 4.5 miles by road. I'm not sure what it is by water. And it's kind of a rite of passage for them. And it's one of the first things they do in the school year. So they kayak out, and then I meet them, and I have a bonfire going. And the principal has made some hot cocoa for them. We didn't always do this. We roughed it early on, but this is our shishi version. And they learned something about prospectors coming there. They do a skit and they role play, and someone is Lillian Moore. And I spray paint small gold rocks behind the museum, and I then sprinkle them around the dirt roads out there, and the kids then have to go out and find the gold rocks, come back and barter with the gold for fire starting materials. And then we have a fire starting competition. Perfect. It was perfect weather for it. Days of downpour. I couldn't, trying to find dry fire starting materials. Anyway, it modified some, but they, part of that, I read a little bit of Lillian Moore's letter. And, you know, they're seventh graders, they just kayak, they're wet, they're like, you know, they're cold. They're just mesmerized by her story because she writes such a compelling letter home. I have since done some research and found that some of the story that's been written about her may indeed not be accurate. So that history is unfolding. A key thing is in the decennial records from 1890 to 1900 burned. And so we don't have a record of where she lived and what she was doing just prior to coming to Alaska. It's said that she's going to a highly touted women's college, and that she's a graduate of there, and that she's living in New York, and that she's coming with 20 of her young colleagues to Alaska, and she turns out to be the only one to arrive. Says she's a certain young age. There's no record of her ever having attended that college. We're not sure how old she was. Her burial site indicates that she may be a different age than what's been suggested or written about. So that letter, that primary source, and her story just, it spurred me then to explore further. So it's done the trick for me, and now I'm trying to pass that on to others. So let me show you a little bit about what's in the kit, and let's see what we're doing. 11:15, we got plenty of time. Okay. See here if I'm in the right section. Okay. Not to worry if you can't read all of this. I'm going to go through this quickly, and all of the same thing is printed, and then we're going to see these things in evidence when I pull the kit apart. Okay, but I'll just tell you a little bit about what's in here. So my kit, one of the first things it does, and if you want me to roll this closer to you, I can. How's that? We can move you towards the mountain. And I don't know if you noticed that Sugarloaf has termination dust on it today.
Oh, it's a mountain. Sorry.
It is a mountain. That is a mountain, and it has termination dust, which supposedly means that we have 6 weeks before full-on winter is going to arrive in Valdez. And we'll see how that goes. Okay, can you see that a little better, everybody? All right. So one of the first things the primary source kit does was it defines what a primary source is. And then it gives you activities that you can participate in to learn a bit more about the different primary sources that are in the kit. The topics, as I mentioned before, in this kit were enumerated upon because they link with communication and the 2021 National History Day theme. There are also ones, again, that I emphasize that are going to touch upon local history and the history of Valdez, Alaska, and the larger history of the state and nation. So I've defined what a primary source is, and then I've said the kit's going to allow you to explore each item to determine what it is, what it's used for, how it's made, and from what materials, who might have used it, and when, and then a myriad number of other things. And then I give examples of things that are actually in the primary source kit from the museum's collection. So there is a prospector's diary, and that it's just a beautiful diary that has hand-drawn maps in that you can open up and learn more about. And then original photographs from the museum. Here is the front page of the newspaper that indicates that we are indeed going to become a state. And this map is one that, if you look carefully, I don't know if you can see it or not, you may be able to see, this is a map from 1898, that the original spelling of Valdez was V-A-L-D-E-S as opposed to V-E-Z. And the idea that's been suggested about the change in spelling pronunciation is that in 1898, we're out of favor with Spain because of the Spanish-American War. And that's one idea. And so the spelling was changed. Another was that they're Alaskans, you know, they were in Old Town together. Somebody said they wanted to pronounce it and spell it with a Z. The post office finally said, we're spelling it with a Z-E-Z. And that was it from then on. So we're not sure how that goes. Again, more examples of items. Shuttle, flax thread artifact, beautiful Athabascan beaded gloves here. Then we talk a little bit about what primary sources can tell us. And we use different tools in the kit, and some of which have been suggested. I've been testing this kit out with the high school history teacher and saying, what do you think of this? What would you change? What would you add? What's working for you? And one of the things we do is we have different kinds of analysis sheets. So this one is from the National Archives, and it's how you analyze a map. And so you're looking at what's the title, legend, defining what type of map it is, and a variety of other things. And then trying to make sense of it. Questions down here: what was happening at the time in history this map was made? Why was it created? Write one sentence that summarizes this map. And how does this map compare to a current map of the same place? And then using it for historical evidence. What did you find out from this map that you might not learn anywhere else? What other documents or historical evidence are you going to use to help you understand this event or topic? Then sound recordings, again, worksheets for all of these. This one's on its side, obviously, so we all will need to just lean our heads to the left slightly. Okay, and back up. All right. So this is a photo analysis paired with teaching about primary sources. I teach VTS, Visual Thinking Strategies, and that is a program and a designed activity that is coming out of museums in the East Coast, where you take a photograph and you pose 3 questions. What's going on in this picture? What do you see that makes you say that? And what more can you find? So kids, not unlike a primary source, using a primary source kit in VTS, they're going to use critical thinking, evidentiary reasoning. They're going to spend time observing the photograph and then decide what the story is in the picture. And what I do is I never tell them what's going on in the picture, and that frustrates the dickens out of them. I never say, you know what, you are right and you are wrong. Never ever do I do that. I am just a facilitator that links the dialogue and tries to get them to keep looking. And in some cases, they might change their mind about what they discover. Before I came to Alaska, I worked with kids in homeless shelters and kids at risk in schools using VTS. And I saw children who, and I get verklempt about this. If you're from the East Coast, you know what that means. because I saw the transformative power of giving voice to kids and not designating that you were right or wrong, but just supporting that voice and supporting inquiry-based learning, that kids who you knew had a hard time of it, when you sat back and you listened, they just blossomed and began to find one thing after the other in the image that was of interest to them. And I think the same thing holds true when you're working with primary sources. So if anyone ever wants to know more about BTS, I can tell you more about that. Philip Yenawin is one of the founders of that. Then we talk about how primary sources teach us about historical perspectives, and also how collections and primary sources can be very limited. So for example, the Library of Congress describes California as I saw a first-person narrative of California's early years in 49 to 1900. And then they describe how this collection is organized and what's in evidence, what voices are present, and what voices are absent. I'm sure that all of you, like me, are really working. We see the real need to tell a more complete story and to broaden the historical narrative in our museums and just in life in general. So then I have a whole listing of where you can find primary sources throughout Alaska and then throughout the nation. And all of these are links. And then I tap into the National History Day theme. And for this particular primary source kit, I'm going to develop 3 different stories and indicate where you might find primary sources that support that. If you wanted to create a film or do some kind of a project for National History Day. If you're not familiar with that, you can create a website, a film, you can do an exhibit, you can write a report, just a variety of things you can do. I'm a National History Day judge. So I've indicated to them that Lillian Moore's Letter Home, where you would find that in our museum's collection. And I don't know about you, but that's one of the things that, I guess it's a little frustrating, is that people still aren't really accessing our online catalog, our museum's online catalog, and they're really not just connecting with wonderful resources to learn more about the history of the region. And so hopefully that will do it. Sometimes it's kids, oftentimes it's kids that lead us. So I'm working towards that end. So then it will show you that handwritten note that appears in her video, the newspaper clipping that announces her death, and then some of these photographs of her. She's a very avid animal lover. And if you can see in this photograph, I always find this one fascinating. I don't know about you, but I always, wheel the baby in the buggy with a bear nearby, right? So the bear does have a chain on it, but and the bear, I can't decide if it's interested in what she's preparing to feed the bear, the baby, or who knows what's going on. But they're orphaned bears that she cares for. Then another story that I thought was important was the preservation of EAC language. And so it's the story of Chief Marie Smith Jones, the last EAC speaker. And I've cited a number of links that you could use to access primary and secondary sources. And then a third one is a story. I'm choosing stories that I think are kind of under the radar and some people don't know enough about, but about events and people that are playing such a significant role in the development of this region. And building the Alcan, there are folks that don't know that it's African-American soldiers of the 97th U.S. Corps of Engineer Regiment that will play a key role in the building of that road. And so I've got a number of images and then citations for where you could find those primary sources there. Okay. I think we've had enough looking and now we need to just open up that kit and see what's in it and do some playing. Does anybody have any questions about what I'm doing? Concerns?
Could you describe this kit? Is there a standard box that is the kit?
I'm taking you back? No, I cannot. Richard, I cannot do that, but I'm gonna just take you to the kit and open it up and let you see everything that's in it. Yeah, I can, I'm sorry. Sorry. I guess you're my, what is it, when the comedy team, you have the one person who thinks she's funny, and then the person you're the straight man. This time. I'm sorry. Okay, all right.
And the shell.
Is that it?
Shell.
Oh, no, that doesn't sound good. Okay.
That's the guy in the audience that's asking the right question.
So you can put them,
To set them up so that people contribute.
Lead the way. Okay.
okay, what's your plan? I don't know. Let's figure out when we get there.
We're going to talk to you about VPS for more
Okay.
before we
Okay.
do this part of the world.
Does everybody need to sit around the table?
Yeah, you can sit around the table. You can,
Okay.
sure. You tell me.
Well, I don't know. I'm
Is
trying
that
to,
gonna work for you?
sure.
Whatever. I want, yeah.
I just want to video things coming out of the bag.
Okay, I.
Or whatever you do.
Right now?
Yes,
Oh, my gosh. right.
you're all good.
The anarchy, we don't want that, right? Something else. You can sit around or stand or however you want to do this. Yep, I'm gonna open up the kit. Okay, so here we go. So,
So I'm assuming that each kit could be different, in size and shape. Different.
Richard, right now I have a prototypical kit. And let's hope in future it gives birth to other kits. But this has been kind of a long time in making. I did this class in 2019. I've been using primary sources for probably, golly, 7 years or 8 years. So hopefully, I don't know what the other kits would look like, but they certainly could have different things in them, certainly different primary sources in them. So let me start by just showing you. Some people think I'm, leaving town, and sometimes that's a good thing. I may take this with me more often, I'm sorry. The museum, I cannot do that report. I am leaving town right now. Okay, no. I wanted something that was portable, that either a teacher could roll around in the classroom and get there, or I could transport from the museum to a local classroom. And in Valdez, the schools are all within driving distance, or in some cases a bit of a walk, but within walking distance. And I was trying to find some kind of luggage that I thought might work for that purpose. And I ended up getting luggage that's designed for sewing and crafting, because they have all those darn pockets in them, right? And it actually had two parts to it. I'm not sure, this is prototypical, how well this will stand up to 300 plus inches of snow. So I may have to take it apart and convey it in 2 sections, which it does. So there's a top section right here, which is portable, comes off. And then there's a bottom here. And I can drop that down here. And then I can just convey this if I need to in the back of my car. Or if I want to, I can just roll it along. The high school teacher said he has rolled this outdoors. Bad weather already. It's all up, so going for it. Okay. So I'm gonna back up here like this. Okay. And if at any point you want to photograph, if you're interested in doing a primary source kit and you want to know what the maker is of this, or where I got it, fine. I don't know about you, but I always find sourcing things in Alaska is so darn much fun, isn't it? Holy moly, you know, I thought maybe I'm gonna have to make this thing, because you'd find just what you wanted, and then you'd find the supply of those that was short supply. We don't ship to Alaska. We no longer know where this is and whatever. So this is what I came up with. So the top is just like a little piece of luggage. And here's what I have in it. And feel free, you know, I'm doing a lot of talking here. If you want to interrupt me, ask questions, question authority on any of those things, you're welcome to do so today. Lots of pockets. There's a pocket here, a front pocket here, and then a pocket in here. And I don't know about you, but I like pockets, but sometimes there's too many of them, and then I can't remember what I have where in the pocket. But the top one holds binders really nicely. Oops. Yeah, so section, let's see what I got. So in that first kit right here, you all see that? How we want this? Right here. That same thing that I just
You're good.
went over that was online is here. So it's going to give you the resources in terms of local access and primary source. And then here, there are lots of wonderful teaching resources that you can use, Library of Congress, National Archives, and others that prompt you to learn more about primary sources. And in these particular ones, they're analysis sheets too. Some of the worksheets, let's see, actually, you'll need pencils and the object nearby, and you'll have a series of questions that you answer related to it. Then what I do is I have in here something that's going to define what an artifact is for people. Here's a worksheet here that is, what does it say this is? This is artifact identification worksheet. And we're just getting kids and anyone to just look at things carefully. What's its shape? How big is it? What color is it? How does it feel? You were saying how much kids really love to be able to handle something. How light or heavy is it? Does it have any moving parts? Does it have a label, anything printed, stamped, or written on it? And then take some of these terms to describe what it's comprised of: paper, cardboard, wood, stone, leather, glass, and the like. And then the back sheet, who used it, when did they use it, what was it used for, what does the artifact tell us about life and times of the people who made the artifact and used it. Okay. Then same kind of questions over here. Goes through and it's going to tell you, these sometimes are sheets that if you have a stand, when I teach this class in high school, I do it in the library and we spread things out on tables. So I may have little signs, and so these could act as my table sign. I could set that on there. So, you know, and here again are additional worksheets. Here's one for the photo workshop. There's one for mapping and the like in this book. This is a prototype, as I say, it's a prototype. So what you're not seeing right now is a table of contents. And of course, my history teacher said that would be very helpful to know what's in here. And he also, he's very funny. I work with him on things. I really don't like that binder fade. It doesn't open and close very easily and the pages get stuck. I said, okay, I'll work on that one for you. So, but it is a pain in the neck when they get stuck, don't you think? So different kind of binder. Is it working for folks thus far?
So far.
What about you online? How are you feeling? Okay?
Go ahead.
They're not saying anything, are they?
No, not yet.
they're not. Okay. Then I told you that I had the I wanted students to see the film of Lillian Moore or have the option of doing that, but then also to understand what the primary sources were that went into its making. And so this binder right here has the images in it that were used in the film. A copy here is a copy of her letter, and then copies of all of those different resources that went into the construction of the film. I think it's important also for them just to have some idea of just the amount of imagery and that you have to sift through to find what's needed to support the film. Go ahead.
So the students would be looking at these two.
Absolutely, yeah. So, great question, Richard. So the idea is when I teach using primary sources, and I will next week, I'll go into the library and I will have a series of stations. I'll bring the kit with me. And at one station, I may have a thumb drive or an iPad, or the students will bring their computers with them so that they can tie into and watch the Lillian Moore film. And then with that binder could be set up so that they can actually then see, just thumb through and see all the images that went into the film. I may have some additional things. I have the whole letter of Lillian Moore here. And I also have the funeral record for Lillian Moore, a copy of that so that they can see that. And they can connect those two together, but kids would be able to handle everything. They watch the film, go through this, and then I have artifacts inside here. What the teacher told me, and I'm just going to grab my notes here for a second, that reviewed the kit said, you know, I'm not sure, let's see, what does he say? He's saying, you know, teachers don't have a ton of time. They need to have your lessons set up so that they may have a half an hour to prep for primary sources if they're going to teach on their own. And they would need a lesson tied to this that had, I guess, a different kind of structure. So what we're going to do is we have a series of documents related to Lillian Moore and a sheet that is about telling stories, how you can take a series of images, objects, put them together and make a story out of it. And in this case, it would be a story about Lillian Moore. So we're going to have that to correspond with this. Let's see. I've showed you those two things in the binder here. I do have the same voice enhancer that I'm using today in my kit. So I'm going to probably have a group of kids, so maybe 18 to 20 kids at any given time. Okay. And I appear to have an empty pocket there. I'm sure that won't last for long. And I have the book, The Secondary Source Valdez Rises. This is a new book that's out that really talks about the transition from Old Town to New and what was happening right after the earthquake in Old Town, and then how they were preparing this site and making the decision to move from one location to the other. And this is by Tabitha Gregory. She used to be the director of the museum. Now, not a primary source, but it is just the bottom of each page has a citation that's going to take you to a primary source. So it's a great resource in the book. And the kit, I'm sorry, here. And then this is a book that it's been on my shelf for quite a long while. It's called Seeking History, and it's teaching with primary sources in grade 4 through 6 and has some wonderful ideas about how you can do that. Okay. And I think that's probably out of print, but maybe not. How am I doing for time?
I think 11.
That's okay.
11:41.
11:41. Okay, good. Okay, let's get to the. Okay. Got too many things on here. No, I don't have my glasses on, do I?
No, they're on the desk.
That's okay. No, I
Okay.
just was trying to figure out, I'm tapping here, here, like that. And I think I've started to slouch also, and nobody gave me a signal, but here we go. Okay, so this zips here. And this has got lots of pockets. Do you want me to stand this up on the table?
No, I can,
Yeah, I can, but everybody can see it maybe better.
Sure.
Apply this back. Is this giving you ideas for how you might do it? It is?
Mhm.
Okay, all right, guys. Otherwise, we can quit and go have another scone or something. No. Okay.
Are you sure there's gonna be any left? I don't think.
Oh, darn it.
I don't know.
I know the person who transported them. So, yeah,
Nice.
yeah, okay. So here's the bottom half of my primary source kit. Pockets galore. Pocket, 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 pocket. Okay. And then it unzips up at the top, as I said. This was designed, I think, for sewing and for crafting. Opens up, and you could not be this lucky. An
Nice.
archival box fits in here perfectly. I was measuring like crazy when I was trying to find this and thinking, oh, what would match up with that? And so this, we're going to save to last, but this has got primary sources in it, lots of wonderful things. Before you get there, like what I heard many of you say, you sometimes have students glove up, right? And then other times you don't. Because this is an education collection, they largely don't have to wear gloves, but you're also trying to teach them that oftentimes you do if you're using original materials. So we have disposable gloves here that are latex free and the like. And then we also have cotton gloves. And what I'm showing you right now is just what I would transport in the kit. And then I have a cache of those things that I can use to replace any of these that were disposable and the like. And I think I'm going to just take a bag with me and have them drop any of the cotton gloves in, so then I can take them home and wash them in the washing machine. We also have a measuring tape, and I'm showing you rulers also because it's important to know how big things are. And I don't know about you, but kids and rulers are not so, they're not so connected anymore.
Depends on the ruler.
Oh, really?
We give a
So
tape
maybe I have the
measure
wrong
out.
ruler.
Yeah, we give a tape measure out that retracts and that's the favorite thing.
Oh, maybe that's what I need.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So we do have tape measure. That's on this front section right here. And probably because the kit is designed to go into a classroom and be left there, then I'll have to give some kind of description about what goes in what pocket. In here, I have thumb drives. I wasn't sure about how teachers would access information. And I also didn't know, what the limitations were on what they were able to access using their computers in terms of internet. And so I said, well, I'm going to get some thumb drives here so that I could put Lillian more on that if I needed to, or like, okay, she's grabbing
No,
that.
you're good. You're good.
I saw her moving
keep
towards the
talking,
thumb drive.
keep talking.
Okay. That's one of the things. And again, I have more of these too. You go to the side here. This is my pencil cache. Isn't it so cool?
Right?
I love this kit. I thought, oh my gosh, there's the pencils. They go in there. I always bring them. And just for the record, it's a pencil with an eraser, folks. The wedding of two key elements on a pencil, right? They usually have one or the other, not both. We move to the other side. Yeah, this is lots more fun than me up there talking, wasn't it? Creepers, sorry. Oh, look, it has handles on the side. I knew they were somewhere. I just couldn't remember where. Oh, these are exciting. You are going to want these. Has magnifiers that light up. Aren't these awesome? Oh, sorry. That was too much.
Oh,
No, I-
wow.
I know, you want one, don't you?
I do.
I know. So I have this kind, and then I have this kind of magnifier that doesn't light up. And I've been told by the high school teacher that I will need smaller magnifiers and a magnifier for everyone, you know, and they will use them probably inappropriately and, you know, nothing to do with the primary source, but they will need that.
Where'd you get your magnifiers at?
I ordered some of those, but you can email me or I'll send you where I got that, probably online. Then I got these great magnifiers up at the hardware store in Glen Allen, and they're very similar to that, long handled, and they have the light on them also, LED light. But the teacher said you're going to need magnifiers for everyone. When we bring 3rd and 4th graders to the One Valdez Museum site where we see the scale model of Old Town, we have flashlights and magnifiers for them, and everyone has to have one, you know, whatever they're looking at. So magnifiers on that side. And then sliding out here. You thought I was going to show you what's in this box, didn't you? I'm not. Okay. Is
Well, we're just gonna have to come and be in the classroom. That's all we have to do to see it.
come on. Yeah. Monday and Friday of next week. Next Friday's cruise ships are coming in town also. Is it Friday? No, Thursday. They're coming in town. And so then I'm the person that gives a guided tour to cruise ships. And they said, can you give a guided tour? And I thought, okay, well, I have to be in the classroom at 8. And then I need to be down at the dock by 9:30 and then back at the classroom by 1:30. And I said, no, I don't think I can. Anyway, here's a crazy ruler. I'm not sure what I think about those, but it's what I ordered. I don't know what the purpose of that is.
Oh, I know why.
Okay,
Because
yes.
whenever
Demystify it.
This is me. So
See, this is a primary.
whenever I put my finger down here, I'm always going over my fingers because I have to hold it on the edge. This I get to hold, and you're not gonna. So when you're drawing a straight line, you're not gonna run into your hand.
Excellent, excellent. Brittany,
That's
this was
me. I don't know.
better known as Bethany, that I keep calling Brittany. So there are rulers in here, and I think I've shown you everything. Okay. Yeah, take this down.
Now, how much does that? You probably have not weighed it, but how much is it? Really heavy, or is it fairly easy to transport?
Easy to transport.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. 50 pounds.
Okay.
No. No, it is not. No.
We'll know when you fly, right? When you take it on a flight with you, then you'll finally call back and be like, this is how much it weighed.
And so then I have things in here that I thought kids would like. So there is, and I am not going to be wearing gloves. This is an education classroom. So a shoe here, and the kids absolutely love shoes. And the cool thing is I do allow them to put it down and compare it. Oh my gosh, that's just dreadful. Yes. Who wore these shoes? This was a size 7, you know, pair of shoes lacing up. So
All women must have had skinny little feet like that.
they must
I
have.
have a pair of my grandmother's shoes, and they're about that wide.
Doesn't it make you want to study what the evolution of women's feet, you know, whether or not it's really possible their feet were.
Yeah, well, it says, I don't know what it says, but how come women don't have feet like that today?
I don't know.
Well, guys don't have feet as small as they used to either. So guys' feet have expanded.
What did the woman with wide feet, you know, or the wide calf do?
Probably like women today who can't find shoes, they wear men's shoes.
Okay.
These are men's shoes.
Bethany, you knew the ruler. You knew the men's shoes.
Because I wear men's shoes.
I wear men's shoes too.
High five, high five.
No, we're finally getting down to it, folks. Yes, okay, all right.
And these are the only ones they say.
Right? Because they were space savers. They couldn't save our boats.
Yeah.
Larger people tend to like have less clothing and they tend to wear it out,
This is
and so
true.
it doesn't preserve. That's probably also.
It's probably one they never wore.
Yeah.
It was one in the back of the closet.
Probably.
Here's the exercise portion of the video. Just one dumbbell and appropriately done by me too.
Oh.
No, and there's an old photograph or a copy of an old photograph that shows little girls that are exercising doing this, but I think that the kids will like something like this. That's in there. So dimensional artifacts, I thought it was important to put in there. We have, and I'm going to just set these guys aside. No.
Stand by.
Okay. And photographs. So I have photographs, right? And I say this is a prototype for a kit. I'm not sure that these will go like this. These were ones that were available to me to use. So they are photographs that are all tied to Valdez's original town site. And then a lovely photo album. So that kids, anyone, excuse me, can see all these. That's interesting the way they cut around her. And see these wonderful,
Early scrapbooking.
yeah. How this was housed. And one of the things that the high school teacher said to me was, Faith, if things are going to be wrapped archivally in tissue paper, then you'll need to let us know how we need to rewrap those. And I'm a great one for photo, so I'll just photograph how I want it wrapped and put it in here accordingly. May take it out of this, and if I'm going to, so I'm not confusing people and putting it in a plastic bag, an archival wrap in a plastic bag. That kind of thing. Okay. Another magazine that is going to be tied to the 1964 earthquake. So this again is a primary source kit that's dovetailing with local history. Oh, don't remember this. You know, I don't know, kids, you show them a rotary telephone and they'll go, what is that? And how does that work? And, you know, and it's a little bit like a record. And this is one of those early wax records. So it's really thick. Lala Wana Lullaby, Foxtrot. Is anyone familiar with that? It's by the Imperial Marimba Band. You know them? Spotify? No? Maybe not. Okay.
Which would be interesting if you could find them on Spotify and play it for the kids.
Oh, that
While they're
would be
looking at the
great.
record, that would be-
Should on Spotify.
It's gotta be, or somewhere, like somebody's gotta have it somewhere. That'd be cool. Okay.
That's awesome. I love that. Were you running away because you thought you asked too much of me?
She's gonna look it up.
Okay. So do you want to see what the marimba band is? Because, oh, whatever, it's right here. I want to call you Whitney. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. All right. Then a newspaper, Anchorage Daily Times. Again, telling you into local history, regional history. And then lastly, I don't even remember what this is.
And they do have a YouTube video of it playing on the record player.
You are kidding.
Nope. Okay, sorry.
The
gotta go through
shoes?
the-
Okay.
no. Gotta wait to skip ads. Ugh. That was not it.
That is too much. I love that.
I remember that.
You said, Richard, you remember that song?
Oh. I got a whole collection of records.
Oh, God.
I have a whole
right, there you
collection
go.
of records that can be used also, so I could change that out. And then lastly, what's in this group right now is a book, but the book has got wonderful maps that unfold in the back. And this was a book that I think was originally, I don't want to say I want to formally say deaccession because I want to make sure I got that right, but I believe that this was an additional copy of a book that we have that was conveyed properly to me, so I can use this in the kit. So that's the last thing that's in this kit. The teachers then said, do you have, additional objects that you could bring? So I have things like a cigar cutter, a metal one with a hinge that's currently behind the pins on bar, and kids have a hard time trying to figure out, what that's used for. The journals that you saw in that film before, the one for the prospectors journals, that have those beautiful handwritten maps. And then also that citation in that front cover that I think is just so key, saying that it's the Chief Nikolai and the Athabascan Otna people who knew how to get around, and they really are mapping the routes and coming to the aid of prospectors. So that's important, I think, for them to note. And then they're looking at those maps and I say, you could make your own ink, and get a pen, a quill pen, make ink out of walnuts or something like that, and create maps of your own. And then they start going, oh, we could do this, maybe we could do this in class. So this is the kit. I think we're drawing in on the conclusion of things, but if you have any questions or comments.
I do have a question. It seems like it would be very important as you put the kit together to know that a teacher or teachers are going to use it. So what's the involvement of the teachers in putting the kit together, developing the story that's going to come or be illustrated by the kit?
I've been working with Kent Runyon. He's the high school history teacher now for several years. So I've been bringing the kit. I've been bringing primary sources to his classroom to teach for several years. So we already have a working relationship. And then when I was developing the kit, I said, I would like your input on this, on what I need to add to it, to change to it as part of its development. So for me, that, because he's a part of that, is going to ensure that he's going to use it. And I already know, I get in touch with teachers the first week before school starts, and I reach out to them and I say, anything I can do to enhance your kids' learning or to support what you're doing. And then they get right back to me. And he said, okay, when can we set up? You're doing visual thinking strategies, and we'll test the primary source kit right out immediately with the kids, see how it works, and then we can modify that. So it may be, Richard, that he uses the kit on a regular basis and not too many other teachers use it. I work with fourth grader teachers also because they're studying local history and fourth and fifth local and state. And so if I make the kit one that has a table of content, tells you how to use it, that's direct and simple, and gives you some lessons that don't require some Herculean effort on your part to jump in, I think that the fourth and fifth grade teachers will use the kit too. I've just been working with them and just developing this relationship with them for a long time, and it's working. So that's what I would say. They'll use it now. And I have homeschoolers that I work with, two different groups, Valdez homeschoolers and Focus Homeschool. And so they're interested in the kit also. So, and how they can use it. I think the key for me is making the kit easy to use to start, and maybe coming with the kit to start to show people how to do it. So I can have a gathering of teachers and homeschool families and parents to start to show them how to use it, and then make it available to them. So
Well, it seems that that connection is very important, because I've seen examples where the government, we're from the government, we're here to help you, come in with something and hand it over. And the people are giving it to, their eyes roll, and say, do this, and it goes on the shelf and everything's used.
Yes,
And in order to be successful, it seems to me the teachers have to be involved, because they've got a curriculum, they've got their thing that they're teaching. How does this fit with them? And it's got to work with them, or they're not going to use it.
I agree. So I know what they're teaching. I know what their curriculum is. I know the kind of salient points that they're going to need to make with their students during certain parts of the year. And have just worked out a relationship with them. If they want me to help support them in any way, I just say yes. Yeah,
And do the teachers have to check it out? So
Yeah.
like, you know exactly who's going, how long, and when
Yeah.
it's coming
Yeah.
back, so you can, okay.
so we would have whatever makes sense. Maybe it's a week that they would have it. And then I do need to get a loan form designed so that they can access it.
And then are you gonna have any paper, like, so I understand they might have like, I don't know, maybe multiple teachers or something that want to use it.
Mhm.
Because my mind was, many, you said like, oh, they can make their own ink. I was like, oh, science teacher could use this
Yep.
and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, my brain goes 20 million miles, sorry. But if they loan it to somebody, or like within the same thing, I mean, would they have to let you know so that, I mean, ultimately they're responsible for getting it back, but I would want to know, yes, I checked it out to the history teacher, but the science teacher used it, the math teacher used it, the so-and-so at this school. So is there going to be a way to
track that. I
yeah, are
think
you gonna have a
absolutely.
post survey? And are you gonna do a post survey after everything's gone and say
Probably, yeah,
what worked, what didn't?
absolutely.
What did your kids say before, after? Okay.
Yeah. I've
Yep.
done a lot in evaluation, so yes, we would find out what's working and what's not working. Right, just like you're saying, there's no sense in serving up, borscht if nobody wants to eat beet soup, right? And they put it on the shelf, which would be really not good over a period of time, probably, but yeah. So find out what people need and support it if you can, and how works best for everybody, so.